And I think the Falcons are looking to make more of every moment. If you look at what they did on Monday, before, during, and after our show, and even this
Yes,
morning,
exactly.
yes, I
Yes.
mean, there's so much to dig into. So, you guys know that we're going to be digging into this for the next few days because we don't want to rob you guys of our reaction to the mini moves. But we'll take on two right now. And,
Yeah.
Jarvis, first of all, you talk about the Jesse Bates move. That was one of the signings that was kind of like right there at the edge, if you will, after the show. Reportedly, according to Adam Schifter, Falcons are giving the former Bengals safety a 4-year, $64 million deal, 23 million in year one, 36 million in the first 2 years of the deal. And then they also signed Kaden Ellis, I believe a former Saint. Falcons make that move. Linebacker, if you will, 7 sacks, 78 tackles, 11 starts. He was one of the names, one of the hot names out there, if you will. So the Falcons got themselves what looks to be some good guys. And of course, this morning we heard the news, and we'll talk about this. We want to dig into it deeper to talk about what it means to have a Taylor Heineke in that QB room. We'll talk about that. And of course, we talked at length about Chris Lindstrom and his extension and some of those special teams guys like Bradley Pinion that just kind of round things out for Marquise Williams. That said, because that was a lot. I mean, literally, there were
Yes.
probably about 7 or 8 moves in the last 24 hours by Terry Fontenot and company. What do you think the underlying message was to get out there early, to get out there often, and to be aggressive?
I think he's trying to build a team, right?
Yes.
I think I see some long term stability in these moves, right? Not necessarily trying to go out and get a guy like Javon Hargraves and paying $20 million for one player and figuring that's going to save the whole entire defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the sound bouts, one of the things that he talked about, and he's far as talking about, is just not about being the defensive line, right? Not just the defensive line or the defense tackle or edge rushers, or it's about
Mm-hmm.
the defense as a whole. Because he said, guess
Yes.
what? If your secondary stink, like of course I'm paraphrasing, if your secondary stinks, shoot, it don't matter how doggone fast those guys can get there. If the ball's
Mm-hmm.
coming out in 1.5 seconds, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You're like that's going to be a completion more than likely. So I think that when you look at the totality of it, I understand where Terry going is coming from as far as the type of moves that he's making. And to be honest with you, for me,
Mm-hmm.
as long as I can see the vision, as long as I can understand where you're headed, what type of moves you're making, and the path that you're taking, I'm cool with that. But I think just once you start getting to the specifics types of moves
Yeah.
or certain players and amounts of money,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I may have an issue because
Yeah.
I was super happy about David Onyemata, excuse me, being signed because I was like, they need somebody to pair with Grady
Yeah.
that is going to be there. You
Yeah.
know exactly what you're going to get each and every down.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I dug into the little film this morning. Ooh, Falcons fans gonna like Mr. Onyemata, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
when you start moving into the whole situation with the safety thing,
Mm-hmm.
$16 million a year. I know you said 36 million that was gonna be in the first 2 years, but good lord, that might just be a little bit too much for my soul. And I was like, look, I said, look at the Falcons balancing me out because I was getting excited, I was ready to go. David Onyemata, let's go. Extension for Chris Lindstrom, let's go. Build the fronts out, and
Right.
then here we go. As soon as we get off the show, Jessie Bates to the Falcons. Mama.
Right. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, I understand them trying to upgrade the position. But for me, when it comes to Bates, he was all pro in 2020. I expect all pro in 2023 because
Yeah.
when you're paying $16 million, top four highest paid safety in NFL history,
Yeah.
yeah, I need playmaking. I need pop.
Right.
I need pop. When I mean by that is when you look at that tape, you see certain guys that just pop. Like I was watching the Saints defense this morning. Demario Davis pops. And when Jesse Bates steps on this field with in that black and red uniform, I need to see him pop, T.
Yeah, well, he better because that all of a sudden became
Better,
kind of a
dog.
loaded room, if you will. Because my first thought was, and what does this mean to a Richie Grant? or to a
Mm.
Jalen Hawkins. Like, what does that mean to that safety slash DB room? So
Ooh,
that, yeah, because
that's
you
a
still
loaded question.
also have Isaiah Oliver out there, and I know he plays corner, but hear me when I say this. I'm looking at it holistically, and it's like, okay, well, if you did put that much money out on Jessie Bates, what does that mean for the other guys who are already on the roster? What are you saying about Casey Hayward in case you have? I mean, you don't know what Casey Hayward's going to be when he comes back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Richie Grant was trending up, but you don't quite know if he was going to get there. It looked like he was going to get to there, meaning the next level, but you don't quite know because it was gone too soon. And then Jalen Hawkins, he was trending up for the most part, right? And
Yeah.
Isaiah Oliver was starting to kind of fit into the quote unquote nickel kind of specialist. But that was, I think my thought went to that, like, okay, how are they going to be able to round out the DB room with paying Jessie Bates that much? And I understand that obviously is the going rate, but that's where my mind went to, like, okay, if indeed the premise is that in order to affect the quarterback and in order to have a true pass rush, you have to fully upgrade your entire defense. Does this put you in a position where maybe you will have a little bit, not a lot, but maybe a little bit of a struggle upgrading because of what his contract looks like?
I think what this says to me is that my initial thoughts when I started seeing all of these moves, right? Like they added to every level of the defense, as far as up front on Yamada, okay, oh my God,
Kaden
why am I?
Ellis is your
Caden Ellis
linebacker.
is your linebacker,
Yeah.
and then Jessie Bates is
Just
your safety.
mm-hmm.
And as far as what that means for Jalen Hawkins, he's probably gonna be the third safety. I can see Richie Grant moving down into the box. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, or if that's gonna benefit him,
Yeah.
or to as far as continued growth as a player and and showing and proving that he is worth a second round pick. So some of those things started to come into play, but that's for the Falcons to figure out when it comes to rotations and how those things are going to work. But I think that if these moves kind of stay put, meaning
Mm-hmm.
if they don't make any more moves as far as defensively, I think corner
Mm-hmm.
and edge rusher may be where the Falcons may be leaning when it comes at the end of April.
Right. And that was the other piece that I was thinking of as well. Like, what does this indicate for where they might go in the draft? And I think it's still a to be determined because I
Yeah,
think one other chip has to fall on the other side, and that's that Caleb McGarry chip.
yeah,
Because wherever they decide to go, whether they decide to retain him and give him a contract, if they're going out to free agency to look for someone, I think we have to hear that. We've got to know what they're going to do with Caleb McGarry, and then that'll kind of tell us what they're going to do really on both sides of the ball the rest of the way. So yeah, hopefully, we're watching it. As you can see, Jarvis and I have and will continue to throughout this week be looking down at our phones because we want to make sure that if some news comes out that you get that news as well. And listen, those are big moves that we're looking at locally, but obviously you've got Locked On Sports Today that's looking across the spectrum. And yeah, when you talk about a David Onyemata, that's a big one. That's a big one. And Chris Lindstrom, the extension of Chris Lindstrom, that was a big one because truly he's one of the best in the business. But they'll be talking about all of it, like Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, going to the Raiders and the Green Bay Packers slowly but surely losing folks on that offense. One of their receivers, Alan Lazard, I think it is,
yep,
on his way out.
to the Jets.
Yes, so they will be paying attention to what's going on in Green Bay. You want to know about it? Check them out wherever you check us out. So if you check out ATL Day Ones on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today there as well. And where you download all of your podcasts, they will be right there to give you all the tea on what's going on across multiple leagues, right? Because we're getting close to spring training as well. And if you want their take of the day on any and everything, they've got it for you. Just like we have for the culture, they've got your take of the day. That is Locked On Sports Today.